What's good, Relocation Football League fans? It's your boy Smitty here with Bill, and we are back with our weekly RFL podcast. And we got some pretty interesting topics, of course, to cover here, as well as the recap of the past week of Week 5. Very interesting week, some big games, some upsets, things to talk about here this week with Bill, man. Glad to have you on the show, and how you feeling right now, my guy?
Feeling good. I think it's going to be a good podcast. We got a lot of stuff to go over today.
Yeah, quite a bit of things, especially just breaking down the recaps of these games that we got that just happened this past week. It was a great week of games, great matchups, and of course, like I said, some upsets and everything that we're going to go over. And with that being said, let's go over those, starting out with the Portland Snowhawks taking on the Crusaders. Snowhawks again falling victim to another loss due to the suspensions, which we can tell is obviously plaguing them as they take another loss here due to poor performance by Casey Chris. I mean, he tried a little bit there, but he did not come up in those big moments, and I think they had an opportunity to possibly win that game, but he just was not consistent, and it cost them that opportunity. And of course, the Crusaders capitalizing on it and taking advantage and winning this game 28-14, which is takeaways on that one.
Yeah, I thought that Casey Chris, he had some bright spots. It wasn't all bad, but when it was bad, it was sort of just cringy to watch. And it's just, they have a lot of work to do if they're going to win anything before the starters come back. And you can sort of see that the leftover talent that wasn't, suspended is trying to push this team. They're trying to make plays, but the team as a whole just can't do it, and they just really need their guys back. Week 8 can't come fast enough for these guys. And then and the Crusaders, they jumped out quick, and I'm completely convinced at this point that Wakefield and Bentley are like the best combo in the RFL right now. Like, those guys have just been crazy this season.
Yeah, killing the game, man. Elijah Bentley getting in top 10 in the RFL record books for the most receiving yards in a single game with 209, as you can see right there. He also broke in second in RFL history for the most receptions in a single game with 14. So he went off in that game. 2 touchdowns, of course, 2 big plays he had in that game. And Ben Wakefield continuing to, just show off his ability at the quarterback position. Great arm, great accuracy. These guys are getting it done. The run game wasn't there, but who needs a run game when you're airing it out like they are? But you never know who you're going to need it against. Of course, with this win here, the Crusaders now lead the NFC West over the Snowhawks, who were on top of there, and they now have themselves a 3-2 record as the Snowhawks, fall to 2-2 after, a bye week. So tough loss right there. Casey Chris, that inconsistency is really hurting them. Hopefully they can at least get one win before it's all said and done, man, before these starters come back, because, if they don't, it's going to be a long season, and this might be the first season in Snowhawks history that they miss out. But moving on to the next game that followed this one on Twitch. Well, actually, we were supposed to be on Twitch, and I had to stream it due to the mouth surgery for Rob Roby. And so this was on YouTube, and we had the Toronto Huskies taking on the Austin Armadillos, and what I would say possibly the biggest upset of the week here. Huge win for the Armadillos, and they win kind of big here. They came together with a good game plan and were able to defeat and take down the Huskies and give them their second loss of the season with a final score of 40-23. What's your thoughts on that game, Bill?
Yeah, after watching this game, I'm convinced that the Armadillos made the right move by putting Hartsock in. I don't think they win this game if Wade is the quarterback. They probably have 5 interceptions, and the Huskies probably find a way to win and not lose it at the end. The Armadillos, I think, they're a team that I think that they're going to be good, and they showed it in this game. I just don't know if they're like a top tier team yet. And the Huskies, in my opinion, they just really had a bad day on offense. They just forced the turnovers that were forced by the Armadillos. They just capitalized on everything, and they made Brady Hudson's day hell. And yeah, man, the Armadillos just came in with a great game plan and sort of punched the Huskies right in the mouth.
The way I feel about it, I think the Huskies' offensive line had one of their best games to date. And it's sad because when they had one of their best games, they ended up losing that game. They only gave up 2 sacks in that game on Brady Hudson. So Brady Hudson had time. You can see his stats was actually really good. He was accurate for the most part. The issue what I found out was for the Huskies from watching this game was just that, it just looks like they didn't have the right play calling to start out the game. And like you said, the Armadillos capitalized on that. Clearly, as you can see right there, good average, but they tried to run him early, and it just wasn't working, and it took away from what they do best, and that's passing the football. And the Armadillos defense just came up with huge plays. The Armadillos, got to give them credit, and Coach DeRozier, right? That's how you say it?
Yeah, it's DeRozier. And yeah,
DeRozier.
Definitely give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, and so you got to give them credit, and Coach DeRozier his credit for coming in with an excellent game plan to take down the Huskies here. I mean, they were just performed on all fronts, in my opinion. Carlos Berry did a good job pretty much running right there. I mean, the average wasn't too great, but, he maintained for the running game for them. But the star of this team in that game was definitely Luis Luciano. He came up huge with a ton of big catches. That one touchdown that he got was amazing effort, where he broke and spanned off the tackle and was able to stretch the ball out just enough for the touchdown. He also did that for a first down within that game. And so, I mean, this was just an all-out great performance by the Armadillos, and I think that the Huskies kind of came out slow, and that's what cost them. And so moving on to the next game of Week 5, that just this past week, we had an NFC showdown in the division. These rivals, newly found rivals now, that after the realignment, the Memphis Steamers remaining undefeated after taking down the Monarchs with a final score of 33-14, and the Monarchs remaining winless. What's your thoughts on that one?
This game was, I think the score, there's a couple of them this week where the score didn't exactly dictate what happened in the game, and this was one of those games. Because, yeah, the Steamers won by a whole bunch of points, but if you watch this game, man, the Monarchs are right there in it for like the first half, if not the first 3 quarters of this game. And when they drove down the field and they scored on I think maybe the opening drive, maybe the second drive for them, I thought this might end up being a trap game for Memphis. And the Monarchs had them on their heels. I mean, the Steamers in the first quarter, Wagner was 0 for 5 before finally completing like a 7 or 8 yard pass to end the first quarter. And at one point, the Monarchs had like 200 yards of offense, and the Steamers barely had 10. So I don't know what happened in the first half, but the Steamers were just not the Steamers. And they finally woke up in the second half. But I really liked what I saw from Preston Schrader. I think that he has improved, and I think that Coach Shepard might be able to do some good things with him. But at the end, the Memphis Steamers woke up. They put him away like we thought they would, but man, the Monarchs actually put up a decent fight in that first half, and it was sort of impressive to watch considering what they've gone through so far and in the past.
Yeah, a lot, and this is one of my initial thoughts on the Monarchs, coming into the game, into the season, saying that, I didn't feel that this team was going to be the worst team. I knew they always had talent, but of course, they've been losing out in games, still losing games after they lost this one. But as you can see from the game notes of capitalizing off of what you said, they came out hot, and they just could not hold up on the Steamers before they were able to get things together. And honestly, maybe they came out hot because of the slow start that Reed Wagner and the offense had, and a lot of drop passes also at that, which I honestly felt like it wasn't too much of Reed Wagner's fault, even though Wagner did have a terrible interception in the red zone. But still, I think it was a lot of drop balls, but at the end of the day, the Steamers were able to come back and make plays. But this game says a lot about the potential of the Monarchs and their young guys. Like you said, Preston Schrader, look at these numbers, 30 of 55, and he had his most passing yards of his career in a single game with 395, had 2 touchdowns, but the 2 interceptions, of course, killed him. But, of course, he's a young guy. He's going to develop over time. And Donovan Rhodes getting his first career start in the RFL, you can see he did actually pretty good. Not too great, but, I mean, if you add up his receiving yards, he had over 100 of yards of total offense, which I predicted from last week's podcast. And, they tried their best and came out hot. They just got to learn how to maintain that momentum and finish. London Foshee, the stats look good right there. 6 receptions for 145 yards and a touchdown. But London Foshee, to be honest, also, I think it was some mishaps on that defensive side of the ball for the Memphis Steamers to start out the game as well. Because looking back at that game, London Foshee literally had like 2 big plays where there was just nobody covering him, and Schrader just threw the ball deep. He just was making plays that way. But, good win for the Memphis Steamers. They remain undefeated. Can't wait to see what they do this week. And the Monarchs, that's a lot to build on there, I believe, for Coach. And, I'm pretty sure he understands where his team's at right now. But that was a good effort. Moving on to the next game, we had another upset. Well, I technically wouldn't call it an upset, but an end of a streak, you can call it, as the San Antonio Marshals were able to end a 13-game winning streak for the Desperados, a team that didn't lose since last March. I mean, it was a huge win right there. A lot of points, the second highest, I think, scoring game this season, which we'll get into, of course, the highest game later on with the Celtic Tigers and the Cougars. But 45-30, Marshals get it done on the road in Austin, Texas. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the Marshals had a heck of a game this week. I was impressed with a few things. For one, I think we finally saw why Justin liked Tyler Agramonte so much in the offseason, because he had a heck of a day. He capitalized on every turnover that the Marshals got him. Every time they shut the Desperados down, he put it in the end zone. It just put it out of reach, essentially. And then on the other side of the ball, Marshall's defense, man, until the fourth quarter, I think he had a couple of nice runs. Tavion Hall got shut down by that defense. They did a great job of using exactly what the Desperados thrive at doing and just stopping it at all costs. They were able to pressure Chase Mason after shutting down the run, throw some of the offense off, and force some turnovers, and like I said, they capitalized. I don't think that. I mean, I'm still pretty high on the Desperados. They had a sort of a bad game. I know they scored 30 points, but I think it was a little bit more Marshals than it looks like. They just have a bad game, and they sort of got beat up and didn't see it coming, and I think they'll be back next week. But yeah, just a really, really good game all around by the Marshals. They had a great game plan for these guys.
Yeah, excellent game plan. I was very impressed also with the rookie receiver, Sean Acosta. He's a community member, submitted player. I know he came out, I believe, to that game and has been coming out to his Marshals games, but you could see the stats on which he had. The rookie had a monster game. I think he might have cracked top 10 in the most receptions in a single game in RFL history as well. You've seen Elijah Bentley making that list with 14. Sean Acosta had 12 for 122 yards and a touchdown. So he was really balling out. But of course, the man throwing it to him, Tyler Agramonte, was just on fire. Only missed 8 passes out of 47. That is so impressive. Over 350 yards, just barely 5 touchdowns. He threw the 1 interception, but still, that was a monster game by Agramonte. Still a young guy, I guess in the mid area. It should be in his prime time right now. And Overstreet had himself a solid game as well, just 2 yards shy of the 100-yard mark. We'll get in more onto him. He was injured in that game, so a tough loss right there. But that also helped the Marshals move up to second in the NFC South. So that was a huge win right there. And I mean, like you said, Tavion Hall shut him down. 14 carries for 55 yards. That's tough. Henry Moss had a big game, 5 receptions for 107 yards. You can see right there. Chase Mason, like you said, this defense has been what's making this Marshals team a dangerous team that you have to worry about, because you can see just what it does. Takes away a great running back, and not only that, forces Chase Mason to turn the ball over twice with interceptions. And, I mean, this defense just comes at you hard and can force turnovers and make plays that you aren't expecting and just take your team completely out of the game. And despite having 30 points, they still lose by 15. Just a remarkable performance by the Marshals there and Coach Rummel. So moving on to the next game, we had the Pioneers once again taking a loss, but they actually look pretty good, almost like that Monarchs and Steamers scenario here. As you know, they made it a 2-possession game. They lost by 14, yes, but I mean they were in it for the most part of this game. Had a lot of big plays. I don't believe they scored a single touchdown. Their touchdown actually came from a special teams, from a kick return touchdown from T.J. Reynolds, somebody who's kind of been sleeping in the back for the Pioneers for a minute. Hopefully, I believe after that, they might get him more involved. But the Sentinels still, at the end of the day, managing to come up, win the game. Final score 27-13. What do you guys say about this?
Man, I am a little bit, I feel like I need to apologize or something, because I was very hard on the Pioneers this year. I think everybody knows that. But, man, I don't think they're as bad as I thought they were. They played great in this game, in my opinion. I was shocked they played this well. And to be honest, if McCafton isn't there, I think that this team could possibly win some games. He just can't get out of his own way. The front seven got after Wilkins enough times to mess them up, and the score at the end of the game was what made it look like such a lopsided victory. But hats off to the Pioneers for a great game.
One thing I could say about McAfton, I mean, even though he didn't have the best of games here, I still think he's a really good, solid quarterback that they have to work with. He's still very young. You can see the stats there, no turnovers. He didn't get no touchdowns, but he still maintained the offense, trying to get something done, but at the same time, still didn't finish drives. And, that just comes down to play calling, and things just have to be right for them to win. They're playing up against a really good, solid defense in the RFL, and you already know the Sentinels have always had and prided themselves on that defensive side of the ball for years, since the beginning of time of the RFL. But they had some bright moments in just showing their potential for the future of this team. Of course, they got Coach Culpepper over there, who I know is going to definitely, rebuild this team, but he's got a great core of guys, and, that was a great effort right there against the Sentinels. And as for their defense, I'm really loving this Pioneers defense, to be honest. They are doing a good job of making it not easy for teams to beat them, because if you think about the years prior, the Pioneers used to flat out get smoked. Their defense couldn't stop anything. They were always pretty decent, but their defense wasn't as good as it is now. They got a lot of playmakers. Not only that, I believe, didn't they win Defensive Player of the Week every week so far in the RFL?
Yeah, I think somebody in the Discord made a comment about they win because their offense is never on the field, so they just pad stats, which is probably true. But they have some really big playmakers on that team, man. And that defense is stout. If it wasn't for their offense, man, that record of theirs might be reversed. Yeah,
and it's not even bad that they're all. And to be honest, I think they have key pieces in the offense. It's just an offense that needs to develop. That's one thing I need to say for that. George McAfton, I think, is a good quarterback that they can work with, like I said, in the future. Andre Tomlinson, of course, he's the older veteran back. He did pretty all right, though. Look at that. 9 carries. He had 45 yards. That's a pretty good average right there. And, of course, they got Bryce Witherspoon and everything else. But, hold up. What happened here? Whoa. Got a glitch going on my laptop. But it's nothing that you guys can see. But I cannot move my mouse right now, so I have to wait until this comes off, man. I hate this so bad.
Is it the Mac? Is it a
yes.
Mac? Oh, gee, that's why I told you, man. You can't use Apple stuff.
Man, I hate this, man. Just give it a second. It'll kick itself.
I've been telling you. Here, let's just be a lesson to you guys in the chat, okay? Apple is not as good as they say they are just because they charge you more money for their stuff, okay?
Okay, it's close. It's fixed now. Don't be coming to Apple like that, man. Don't be coming to Apple. You better not own an Apple phone.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this. Okay, now it's good. Okay, it's good. Okay, so I can't even remember where I left off. I believe I was talking about the offense being pretty good. And like I said, they got some weapons that, just have not developed yet. And they're going to continue to get better. At the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to. But getting to more on the Sentinels, talking with them, they still did a pretty good job. VJ Whitfield had one of his best games that he's had since like last year. Well, the year before, we already know he's an older back. I believe he's 29, if not 30 on the head. But he had a great game, 30 carries for 116 yards. He had a touchdown. One of those and that touchdown was actually a long run where he put on some good moves, broke tackles. He looked very impressive. And, of course, DeAndre Wilkins Jr. getting it done. But like I said, very close game due to the competitiveness and great play of the Pioneers. Definitely a great game to watch, but the Sentinels getting it done.
Yeah, and real quick, Zach, that's said by a man with a working Android, not an Apple that stopped working, man. So, boom.
It's cool, but, nobody responds to green text messages when they see them. If they're not blue, then
that's
cool.
That's just crazy. That's just nuts. We're going to change this podcast up to a debate about Android and Apple.
To be honest, though, y'all's quality is not up there with ours, man. Let's keep it on.
All right, you can have a camera. I'll have a working phone.
But anyway, moving on to the rest of this podcast here, we have a recap here of the Dreadnoughts and the Bisons. Now, from what most people were saying, like this was one of those boring defensive games to watch. A lot of a good amount of mistakes and things going on, and just not a lot of big plays. There was quite a few though, but it was a low-scoring game, and the Dreadnoughts were able to pull off a great fourth quarter comeback to beat the Bisons with a final score of 22-19. What's your takeaways from that one?
Yeah, this is a tough one to get takeaways for because, man, this was definitely a defensive game. I'll leave it at that. It just seemed like neither of the quarterbacks could get anything going. And I know that Matt Jones was making his first start, so that sort of was expected. I sort of blame the Bison's O-line to some degree for why they couldn't get things going. And the Dreadnoughts, I sort of blame it on, just being a young quarterback, first game as a starter. I did think, though, that James Thompson had a pretty decent day in his debut. Not the best average, but he showed some playmaking ability. And welcome back Cam Jones to the RFL. My God, that touchdown catch he had, the first one or whatever it was like double coverage. Man, that was crazy. But in the end, I've been calling for him all season, and I just think that Devin Holbert cost them the game at the end of the game, man. That interception that he threw was, I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know who he was throwing to. You could see they were sitting in zone coverage, and without that pick, they might have just been able to put the game away, but the Dreadnoughts capitalized, move on to get the victory, and here we are.
And once again, what it comes down to, I feel, for why the Bisons are struggling is simply the offensive line, man. It doesn't matter who you put back there. I've been saying this for weeks, and you can still see that Devin Holbert, he completed a lot of these passes, 33 of 43, 338 yards. He had a touchdown, and yes, that interception really did cost them. But, at the end of the day, I think that's what Coach Long has to deal with, just figuring out how to get that line better. Because once that line gets better, I think the whole team gets better. And you can see Luke Chamberlain having a big day, 12 receptions, 140 yards, had a touchdown. Like you said, James Thompson showing promise, running the football. So the offense, I think they have the key players there. And I don't feel that there's nobody necessarily to blame on the skill side of the offense. It's more so that line up front, and there's just nobody, I don't believe, is going to play good under those conditions. Even when it comes down to receivers or running backs or whatever you call it, like you said, we saw a lot of potential out of James Thompson, not necessarily because he was running and hitting lanes due to good blocking. He had to make plays happen himself. So, just from looking at that, it just tells you that the offensive line is a serious problem for the Bisons. And not only that, their defense has been atrocious. They can't generate any type of pass rush. And, they were at least able to, for the most part, shut down the Dreadnoughts offense. But like you said, Matt Jones coming in, starting for the Dreadnoughts there, getting his first start, kind of rusty and everything, and just wasn't all the way up to par. But, he did the best that he could, won the game. As long as he didn't turn the football over, he played pretty good. You could see no interceptions, had a touchdown. Over 250 passing yards. They couldn't really get the run game going, but that's mainly because they didn't run that much, so they were trying to air it out. I think main reason was because Cam Jones came back, and you can see Cam Jones leading the team in receptions for the Dreadnoughts, 4 receptions for 81 yards, had a touchdown, and that one touchdown, of course, the one where he just went up and bagged the defensive back for pretty much the game winner. Well, not the game winner, but the momentum play that they needed to go ahead and come back and win that game in the fourth. So, a lot to be said about both of these teams, but still at the end of the day, I think the rivalry and everything was a good game, but there's some things that definitely needs to be fixed for the Bisons if they want to start trying to turn things around this season. Next game was the Salt Lake City Elks taking on the Dublin Shamrocks, and the Shamrocks came into this game losing 3 straight. And, of course, we saw Coach Forza. He was frustrated about how things was going on. It was in a depressed mode and everything. But, this was definitely a win, I believe, that rejuvenated him. Both teams really fought. They really fought well. The quarterback play was not the best. Nobody even threw for over 200 yards. Kyle Bain, less than 150. But still, great game to watch. Shamrocks ended up winning that one 24-13.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing as I did for the last game. Neither offense could really get it going through the air. They both struggled mightily. I don't know. This is sort of what happened with Wilson last year too. So I'm not sure if maybe my expectations are too high for him. I'm sure some guy in the chat will agree with that because some aren't as high on him as I am, but. Thank God for Lester Gadsden. That guy, he just had a day, 178 yards, 28 carries, and a touchdown. Without him, I don't know if they win this game. That's a big day from that running back, and I like that move from the day I saw him going to Dublin, and showing why right there. As for the Elks, I'm not really sure what happened to Kyle Bain there. It seemed like they did a good job of making sure he couldn't take off from the pocket, and we just didn't see any of the as many deep shots as I guess we're used to seeing. We've seen a couple of nice plays from him, but not this time around. Just a weird back and forth game, and Shamrocks just toughed it out.
Yeah, as for the reason, I wouldn't necessarily say too much it was the defense that shut down the scrambling game. This is the second week in a row, in my opinion, that I feel Kyle Bain just did not scramble for some reason. We already know his ability to scramble the football is amazing, but he did scramble. Of course, he got the lone touchdown for them in that game. But there was a lot of times where he could have scrambled. Instead, he tried to play the quarterback, sit there and try to find someone open and make the play with his arm, and it just didn't work. And like I've said, you want to see your quarterback develop as a passer, but Kyle Bain is just, right now you're just not there. He needs to understand that. I know he wants to get better at it, but there's times where you got to take off and make plays. And if he had done that more often, like he should have did last week in that loss that they had, now 2 losses straight back to back for them, then maybe he wins both of those games. So it's tough right there for Kyle Bain. I think he's got to stick with what he's accustomed to doing instead of trying to be something that he's technically not. And you can see from the stats and everything, the yards really was not good throwing the football. Darius Martin couldn't even get going. You can see, look at his stats, 17 carries for 49 yards. So they shut him down.
I don't know what's going on there.
That's the issue right now, I feel, with the Elks. They need to figure out a way to get him going. Maybe it's the offensive line not doing good. But they need to find a way to call, I guess, better plays that's going to get him maybe to the outside or give him some space. I don't know what's going on, but it's not working. Looking at the Shamrocks, a breakdown from them in this game. I mean, it's a great game to snap their 3-game losing streak. I don't believe they performed bad at all since the beginning of this season. They just had really tough games. That's the same stuff we said in the pre.
Really, you know
what I mean?
Bad luck.
Yeah, like it's just been really tough games. Of course, 2 of those from the undefeated Steamers, and they get their 3rd somewhere else. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Shamrocks been playing good football. The things that was killing them was turnovers, and I think you've seen them limit that in this game. Not necessarily, because if you guys did watch that game, I mean the Elks defense was straight up popping the ball carriers, man. They were forcing fumbles, big hits all day. Guys just looking like they're getting knocked out and sent home on a stretcher. But the Shamrocks definitely came out ready to fight. Great game by Lester Gaston. They did do a pretty good job keeping Woods under the wraps, but he still came out in the beginning and made a big play. But great win right here for Coach Forsey and the Shamrocks as they are able to get finally out of that funk. And so moving on to your game right here, Bill, I mean, this was one heck of a performance by you guys. Got to give it off to you. You were able to defeat the Condors, and Condors really struggling here. I mean, 1-4 record. Beat them 34-9. And, I mean, this was a very impressive win right here. What do you guys say about your game?
I mean, it was something that I don't want to sound, I don't know. I don't want to sound like a D. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I sort of expected that we would be able to win this game. I really thought that our matchups were great against the Condors for our receivers, regardless if it was CJ or anybody else. And I just felt that we had a good game plan against their offense. I knew that our defense was good, and we just had a great game. Atagwe, man, I don't know how this guy got 3 touchdowns and only had 98 yards rushing. That's got to be the craziest non-100-yard game I've ever seen out of a running back, because he was just on fire in this game. But, yeah, I mean, it was just a good game. Condors, they had a good offense, stat-wise, but I don't know how good of defenses they've played so far this year to really sort of pad that. And we were just able to capitalize on a lot of things, and just pull out the big W.
Yeah, that was a great win right there. Like you said, great performance for a running back that didn't even touch 100 yards, but he was very close to it with 98. Excuse the misspelling of C.J. Robinson at the bottom there. I don't know who C.J. Robinson is, but he had a pretty good game until he got injured, which we'll talk about later on after we recap these games. But the Condors, I think it was just the matchup. They just got completely outplayed, out-schemed, outworked, and the defense just shut down the offense completely. And their defense, we already know, has struggled in the past and has not been that good, so they couldn't keep up with your offense. Your offense finally got into a rhythm to be able to finish drives, which you talked about has been one of your struggling points in the start of this season. But you see what happens when you guys finish drives, you guys dominate, and you guys dominated in all phases of the game. And, of course, it came at a tough loss, but at the end of the day, you guys got it done.
Yeah, just to add to this, I really think the Condors, they have a good team. I believe Chase McCoy can be a franchise quarterback and can lead them, but if they're going to have success, I know the loss of Bookie Johnson really hurt them because he was doing great for them in the first few weeks, but they have a guy in that backfield, man. You got to find a way to get him involved and find something that works. That guy is a game changer, and even though they haven't used him all year long, my main concern was not allowing my defense to be the first team that Ronnie Nickens decided to show up for, because that guy is a baller. And if I'm the Condors, my only concern is how can I get Nickens working? Because with him working, that team could probably be 4-1, to be honest. I mean, I know their defense is very iffy right now, but that offense is potent. You know, with him and Jaguar and McCoy, they could have a really special offense. They just have to find a way to get Nickens going, because otherwise it's just all a waste at this point. And that's just my blunt opinion.
Well, for my opinion on that, at first I did kind of feel some type of way that they weren't using a guy who they were high on getting in the first place. But one thing I have started to notice is that, to be honest, it's just not their type of back for that team. You can obviously see from the style of backs and the style of players that, from the style of offense that they have, it's based on speed. Ronnie Nickens just simply is not that guy. That's a big reason on why Coach Kozera came in and got rid of Ronnie Nickens in the first place for the Thunderbirds, even though the whole community was pissed off about that. I mean, at the end of the day, you can see kind of why that transpired for the same exact reason. Now, okay, maybe it could have been on Coach for not trying to figure out a better game plan to get him going. But I think if you get Ronnie Nickens involved, if you get more into that power running style offense, I think it actually slows down the potential of the offense that they have there, which is based off speed and running and using those faster and smaller players like Jake Molyneux and, Buki Johnson. That's why those guys are having success in the same offense. Everybody, honestly, on the offensive side of the ball is having success in that offense except for Ronnie Nickens. And I can see now why it is they wanted to make that trade, but at the same time, it was things led up before this. That was the problem, not trying to get him implemented to see what happens. But, hopefully he'll find a home soon. I know Coach has been trying to trade him, but to be honest, there's really nowhere I can see him landing right now because teams are pretty much set at running back. And, it's a tough situation for a guy who once used to be on top of the league, coming in as a rookie, still to this day, holding the most rushing yards in a single game in the RFL. So tough deal right there for Ronnie Nickens. Moving on to the biggest game of the week right here. And man, did this game live up to the hype. The Celtic Tigers traveled to Chicago to take on their former coach, Rob Roby, and the Cougars. And man, they threw a little insult at the end of the game, scoring a pretty much unnecessary touchdown to win it by 17. But, this was a game that was exciting to watch from beginning to end. The Celtic Tigers defeat the Cougars to remain undefeated at 5-0 with a final score of 47-30.
Yeah, I thought this was a great game. The score looks like it's a little bit lopsided, but like you said, that score at the end was completely unnecessary. I don't know if they were just trying to take a shot at their old coach or what, but that was not called for. And, this is the game we hoped for when we saw it come up on the schedule. You want a team these two great teams to go at each other and really, just duke it out, and that's exactly what happened. And I thought that regardless of the score and their record, I thought the Cougars played really well in this game from the majority of it. Rob Slater was able to, sort of keep up with Dre Crowell for the most of the game, and they did have some drives where they did shut down the Celtic Tigers offense, which is tough to do with Dre Crowell. It just so happens that every single time you thought that maybe the Cougars were about to, get that leg up they needed, Trey Worsley just came out with, I don't even know how to explain him. He was just ungodly in this game. And it just took all of the air out of their sail every single time. There was how many drives? I think 2 or 3 drives at least I counted where it looked like the Cougars were about to get a 3-and-out or a big stop, and they were rolling from the last drive. And Worsley's just like, nope, let me make 15 guys miss and break a tackle and take off for 20 yards. And it's just, you hate to see that, but that's why Worsley's so good and why the Celtic Tigers are what they are. So it's just a great game all around, though. Hats off to the Cougars. They did great against them. And watch out for them Celtic Tigers.
Yeah, I want to first start off by definitely giving a ton of credit to the Cougars for even making this a game, because we've seen what other teams have been able to do against the Celtic Tigers. Of course, the Red Dragons had themselves a pretty good performance against them as well, but of course their struggling offense couldn't get it done, and that's why they ended up losing that one. But as for the Cougars, the goal to success in this game to start it out was, can this offense stick with the Celtic Tigers offense. And I think that they tried their absolute best to do that. But of course, it's the Celtic Tigers' best offense in the league right now. And they showed that because they were able to score multiple times against, I would have to say, a team that is top 3 in defense this year. I mean, this defense made tremendous leaps and has always been a great defense. But the fact that the Celtic Tigers were able to move against a defense that great just shows you the talent on the offensive side of the ball for the Celtic Tigers. Drake Crowell, I mean, and I was talking to, we was in the CU talking about this, and Rob was talking about, man, how he came into the game plan trying to send pressure on Dre, and it got there, but it didn't phase the GOAT. I mean, he literally was sitting there with pressure right in his face, seconds away from getting hit. He got hit quite a few times in that game and still was dropping absolute dimes on players. He just is the best in the game at doing it in the RFL. And that killed the Cougars because they took a chance trying to throw the GOAT off of his normal, just sitting in the pocket, finding things and making things easy or making it easy for him by not sending pressure. And even though they sent pressure, that left a lot of gaps in that defense for them to still be able to make plays. And like I said, did not phase Drake Crowell at all. And of course, Trey Worsley, I mean, I expected him to have a good game, but I did not think he was going to have a big game like this. I believe this might be the greatest game for the most yards he's ever had in the RFL from scrimmage. I mean, this guy literally led the team in not rushing, but receiving as well off of just 5 catches. Of course, that screen really helped him out. But, I mean, still at the end of the day, he's the one that caught that and took it all the way to the house. And you can see from the numbers, 20 carries, 154 yards on the ground. He got 2 rushing touchdowns. And then you look at the receiving game of him. He had 5 receptions for 117 yards leading the team and a touchdown, and that 3 total touchdowns with 271 yards of total offensive yards of scrimmage, man. That is just ridiculous. And then Drake Crowell, of course, the GOAT, only missing 6 out of 40 passes, throws for over 400 yards, and he himself has 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, that's just... There's no way you can beat that, man, when they're playing like that. And then you look at the Cougars, like I said, credit to this team. They tried their best. Rob Slater had a great game. Missed 5 out of 35 passes. Great percentage right there. Threw for over 350 yards. Had a touchdown throwing as well. They couldn't really get the run game going, but Marcus Knight, you could see right there that what they were doing, well, actually the run game wasn't too bad, but you know how they like to switch up their running back. So they were switching between Marcus Knight, Ashland Boyd, and Denard Locker, who was running guys over and everything in that nature. So, I mean, they had 2 rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown. They were trying their best, just couldn't get it done. And, of course, Contavious Henderson, their top receiver, 7 receptions, 154 yards going off. No touchdowns, though, but still, they did everything they possibly could to try to win this game, but they came up short. Got to give those guys credit. It was a great game to watch till the end, man. And for the last game of the week, to recap week 5 of the RFL, we had the Red Dragons taking on the Riverhogs. This was a game for the AFC West, and the Red Dragons came out on top, doing what they love to do. It may have been nothing but defense, but that's the Red Dragons game. They shut down the Riverhawks to no touchdowns at all in the entire game, just straight field goals, and they win it 19-9.
Yeah, very, very defensive game in this one. It was, if you are not a defensive fan, this is probably not the greatest game to watch, but at this point in the season, it's sort of what we get every time we watch a Red Dragons game, because, I mean, the defense of theirs has been just astronomically better than most defenses in the league right now. And usually, if you play a team and if you can hold them to like 17, 20 points, you might have a pretty good shot of winning the game. That's sort of the consensus and average. And the Red Dragons, you have luck even scoring 10 points against these guys. I don't know if they've had more than 10 points except for one game scored against them. They're just always able to shut down anything that an offense tries to do. And if this offense of theirs could just find the rhythm, they'd just be unstoppable. The 3-2 record is solely because the offense has had a hard time finishing any drives, and that's what they need to do. I mean, Savoy is having a lot of luck on the ground, and you see little spurts from him. It looks like he's starting to get a little bit. You see some better passing from him, and maybe it's a little bit slower than we expected, but I think last year with DWJ from the Sentinels, I think that was sort of spoiled our expectations a little bit, because now we're just assuming people to come out and compete for MVPs in their rookie season. But yeah, just a defensive game, And, of course, again, the Red Dragons shut down an offense, and they win by a few points and only give up a few points. Another week, another Red Dragons W.
Yeah, the Red Dragons, honestly, I think they do have the best defense in the league. And I'm even putting that up there with the Thunderbirds. It's between them for number 1 and number 2. But, I mean, this team consistently shuts teams down and gives their team a chance to win. If their defense wasn't that good, this is a team that probably wouldn't have won any games because their offense has been so lackluster. But looking at the offense, Anthony Savoy, it's definitely a lot of talk about, is this guy going to be the franchise quarterback for the franchise of the Red Dragons? Can he get it done? Can he boost up this offense? To be honest, he's making plays, but I honestly feel like this offense is still, honestly, it's worse than what it used to be in the past. But it's because it's a change of pace quarterback here with Anthony Savoy. At this point, I don't recommend them at all subbing in Joey Luigs. I think that Anthony Savoy is the guy, but what they're sacrificing here also with having to make that decision is the fact that, Anthony Savoy, he's just a different type of back. And I think, honestly, these receivers are kind of frustrated because, I mean, they have beast receivers on this team. Obey Kid, you got Andrew McIntosh, you got Compton, Deontay Compton. Those are 3-star receivers that has been beast in this league for years. I think it was McIntosh and Compton who were the original receivers who really killed the game since the start of the RFL. And Obey Kid was drafted, I believe, in season 3. But what it comes down to is, these guys, it's two things. Either they're not getting open and running routes, or Anthony Savoy is just not throwing them the football, giving them a chance. I think that's what they need to do. If anybody can remember to the history of the Red Dragons watching games, these guys on offense was known for having what I used to call them the Twin Tower receivers. You got 2 receivers standing at 6'6". Where's the jump balls at? Throw them up some jump balls. Give them an opportunity, even if they're covered to make a play. And you can see from in this game, Andrew McIntosh only having 2 receptions for 30 yards. That was their leading receiver. And I think that's what's killing them is the fact that Anthony Savoy, yes, he's a great dual threat quarterback for this offense. He's a great dual threat quarterback for this team. But the problem is solely that he needs to be a better passer. And of course, that's going to come over time. But I think it's that aspect that is really killing this team offensively. And that's why they're also dead last in passing yards. They're tops in running, of course, with Savoy and Bobo, but they can't pass the football. And they got the receivers to make it happen. I think Savoy needs to work better on being, of course, accurate and trying to give his receivers a chance. And you can see, 103 yards in the game total is just unacceptable with no passing touchdowns at all. But he did rush in for a touchdown. But I honestly think he's the only thing that is keeping this offense alive. And at the same time, he's the other thing that is holding them back at the same time. So it's difficult to see what's going on with that offense and if they can even fix it. Because like I said, Joey Luigs just not the guy anymore. But that's what they're going to have to deal with this year. And it makes me wonder, like, even if they get into the playoffs, how long will they last without their offense being able to move or score points? So that's a tough one. But coming into this game, the defense handled business. Their offense, they did a great. They did what they could. C.J. Bobo ran well. You see his average right there with 4 yards per carry. Hunter Mackey in the offense, I think they did pretty good. They just couldn't finish against a great defense. That's what it came down to. The Riverhawks did a good job. They just couldn't come down, win the game. That's pretty much all I had to say about that. And so with that being said, just going back to let me try to see my notes where we're moving on here. Okay, so from those games, what game did you say what games were disappointments for you, and what games were some shockers, some things like that this week that you were excited to see?
Yeah, I have my shocker right now is actually 2 teams, and I think it's just because I've been dogging them for most of the season. I want to give the shocker to the Pioneers and the Monarchs because both of them battled much better opponents. And each, even though they didn't win, had really big positives to take from it, I think. The Pioneers had a great day defensively, and it almost was enough to keep up and possibly beat the Sentinels. And then the Monarchs, they sort of stunned the Steamers in the first half. There's no other way to put it. Justin, I'm sorry. I know you're probably not going to like this, but they almost had your number. And, I was just impressed by their performance. So those are my shockers for the week. And Tori, you're not going to like my disappointment, but I honestly thought the Sentinels were my disappointment this week. Most of the games outside of this one went exactly how I thought they would go. And I could probably even put the Steamers in this category. I don't want to use the same two games, but I don't really have any other choice. I thought the Sentinels would win a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for here? I just thought they'd have a more predominant win over the Pioneers, even with the defense. I thought DeAndre Wilkins and VJ Whitfield and those guys would be able to put up points, even though they have a good defense. And so, I mean, I guess my disappointment, even though they won, is the Sentinels this week because I think I expected a little bit more out of them.
Yeah, and for my shocker was definitely the Armadillos beating the Huskies. That was definitely the shocker of the week for me. But to be honest, I don't take nothing really too much away from the Huskies at all, even though they did start out kind of slow. And it will be a topic that we'll get to later in this podcast. But the Armadillos, they just came in there ready to rock and defend their home turf. They just came in there with an excellent game plan. So they shocked me with that win, especially by winning by the amount of points that they did. So that's a big reason why I got them right now on the podcast poster, because I mean that was just an all-around great performance. In terms of disappointments, I wouldn't quite say I had much of any, but I guess if anything, maybe the Steamers, the first half, how they started out against the Monarchs. But to be honest, they cleared that up, and also the Sentinels, like you said. So I agree with you on both of those, because the Sentinels I honestly felt should have did a little bit better. But to be honest, it wasn't nothing too serious. It just, I think that the Pioneers defense is a little bit better than what people think that they are, and that's what it came down to. So those were my disappointments and shockers for this week.
Yeah, and Justin and Tori, you guys should even take that as a bad thing, because we just think so highly of your teams that you should have just blown them out the water, but you didn't. So that's why you're a disappointment this week. So take the L and just accept it.
It's all good. I still think both teams perform, and at the end of the day, both teams got the victory. So that's all it comes down to. So, but I didn't make the graphics for this. But there's some major injuries that took place, especially at the receiving core. The receiving core of three teams. So, of course, we're going to start out with Tyler McGarity for the Sentinels. They lose him. Then the Riverhawks in their game against the Red Dragons lost Sylvester Leach, who's a top receiver overall-wise in the RFL as well. And, of course, the number one overall rated receiver, C.J. Robinson, your guy, losing out for quite some time, 8 weeks, man. Now, that's tough. And then, of course, from getting outside of the receiver realm for injuries, we go to the last big topic guy who got injured, and that is the Marshals running back, Rayshon Overstreet. A lot of key loss guys right there. I mean, what's your thoughts on all these losses for each team?
Well, I feel like in week 5, everybody's shoulders just sucked, because that was literally what everybody's injury was. 3 shoulder tears and a broken collarbone. So I don't know what kind of weight they've been carrying around on their shoulders, but it finally caved in. Yeah, I mean, it's really, if you look at it, my injury to CJ I feel is the worst, because once it's 8 weeks long, of course it has to be longer than everybody else's, and he's sort of a big deal in the RFL, at least I think so. But yeah, just all around, every one of these injuries I think can have a drastic effect. I'm sort of excited for the Marshals, at least, because I've been wanting to see Adam Guerin get a chance to play, and I hope he does well. But it's a loss with Rayshon Overstreet. He's a great player. Sylvester Leach, he's an amazing receiver as well. He's going to be out 5 weeks with the shoulder tear. And I know McGarrity's been getting some good looks in Orlando, so every one of those is going to be a big loss. But I'd have to say that probably CJ is going to be the biggest loss of them all. And that's not just because I'm the Explorers coach. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I'll agree with you right there with C.J. Robinson being the biggest loss. But I think the biggest impact might just be the loss of McGarity for the Sentinels. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I honestly felt like this has been a huge start for Tyler McGarity this season. He's made a heck of a lot of plays for the Sentinels, and to lose that receiver target for them, I think is more of an impact for them than for your Explorers, because you have other key weapons. Of course, they're not on the level of C.J. Robinson, but I think that his offense will be more affected than the loss of C.J. Robinson, which we know that loss even for you guys is pretty big as well. But you got some guys you got some guys that I know will step up and, make some plays like Courtney Mitchell. We saw Leon James make a heck of a catch in the game too against the Condors. So you got some playmakers. As for the Sentinels, they got some pretty good playmakers too. They got the rookie Trey Cook. He's been actually doing pretty good. But other than that, I mean, that's just about all they have, So that's why it's tough for them. They're going to have to rely on their old veteran running back VJ Whitfield to get things going. So I think they're going to have to key in heavy on running the football, and that also takes away from DWJ being a quarterback and trying to make plays himself. So that offense might be more affected than all those other injuries there for those teams. So that's a pretty tough loss, but tough loss for all four of those teams for sure. And so with that being said, recapping those injuries, we'll get a look at week 6 of the RFL coming up here. My bad if it's too small for you guys to read right now, but you guys, I'm pretty sure, saw the graphic on Instagram, Twitter, or all of our social media. We posted our stuff up here, pretty much of the graphics we're going to be using for these podcasts. And this is the week 6 schedule. Finally, I was able to make it all into one graphic. Because before what I used to do is have 2 of them and have them separated by premiere and primetime games. But now you can easily see them in order from left to right and, going down and so forth of what the games are and the times, except for the Cougars and Bulls game. That's actually at 6, and the Lancers and Gunners game is supposed to be at 8. So Lancers and Gunners game and Bulls and Cougars game should be switched. But looking at what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and, of course, read the times and everything off of these games. And then after that, I'm going to ask you, who do you think is going to win as usual? And so first we start out tomorrow. We're going to have the Crusaders taking on the Condors at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Great game right there in the NFC. And this is pretty much division week, to be honest. A lot of divisional games that we're going to be seeing this week. But that's going to be the first game to kick us off on YouTube. And then after that, we have the Dreadnoughts taking on the Armadillos again. That's going to be a really good one there on Thursday, following that Crusaders Condors game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. Then for our premier games, going in order, we have the Barons taking on the Thunderbirds. Definitely a game that I'm interested in watching right there. That's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern. Then that game's going to be followed at 4. That game's going to be followed up by 2 4 p.m. games. First starting off with the Columbus Explorers taking on the Tigers and the Steamers taking on the Marshalls. 2 big games right here. This schedule, honestly, this week is looking like a bunch of great games to watch. But actually, those 2 games are going to be played at the same time. So both of those games are going to be running as premieres at 4 o'clock. And then at 6 o'clock, it's going to be, we skip the Lancers and Gunners game. It's going to be the Bulldogs taking on the Bisons and the Bulls taking on the Cougars. That's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And then to close out the premier games at 8 p.m. Eastern, game called by Jeff, will be the Lancers taking on the Gunners. So the Gunners coming back and finally having a game after like about 2-3 weeks off. Then we go back into our primetime games on Sunday. On YouTube at 6 p.m. Eastern, we have the Riverhawks taking on the Black Knights, followed by the Diablos taking on the Desperados on Twitch at 7:30. And then we finish off the week with the last 2 games with a rematch between the Salt Lake City Elks hosting the Portland Snowhawks on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern to kick off the games on YouTube, and the finish on Twitch at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, a rematch between the Aviators and the Huskies. So a great slate of games right here that we got coming up. And so from there, go ahead, break down. What do you think is going to be the results of these games?
All right, so first for the 2 Thursday games, we have the Crusaders at the Condors. In that game, I'm going to have to take the Crusaders. Wakefield and Bentley they're just destroying people at this point in the league, and I just don't see the Condors defense being able to change that or stop that. So I got to go Crusaders there. And for the Dreadnoughts and the Armadillos, this one is sort of a toss-up for me. Wasn't really too sure because I like what the Armadillos did last week, and the Dreadnoughts have been playing really well. But I'm going to go with the home team, and I'm going to take the Armadillos in this one. I just think that while Matt Jones did have a good game last week, the Armadillos might be able to get to him like they did Hudson, and maybe make him make some mistakes. So Armadillos for that one. On to the Saturday games, the Barons and the Thunderbirds. Another toss-up. It's a divisional game, but I got to go Thunderbirds. They're rolling. They have an abundance of playmakers, and they're at home. And we all know how tough they are to beat at home. Then we have my game, the Explorers at the Tigers. I got to go Explorers. That's my team. I have to take them. but I really do think that I match up well against them. I had a big victory against them in week 1. I think even without CJ that I'll be able to move the ball against them, and that's why I think that I'll end up winning that game. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. Then we have the Steamers at the Marshalls. I got to go Steamers here. They've been rolling, and they always seem to find a way to win, just like last week. Things looked sort of bleak for them in the first half. They ended up finding a way to get back in it, figure out what they were doing, and just, pull away in the end. So I'm going to go Steamers with that one. And then we have the Bulldogs and the Bison. This was another toss-up. I'm going to have to go Bulldogs, though. I like the Bison at home, but I just don't know if their offense is going to be able to, or the offense is going to be able to stay in rhythm. They just seem to have some kind of issues with the blocking up front, and that's always a bad thing for any team. So I think the Bulldogs with Merritt and Whitehead, I think they'll end up taking it on the road. And then we have the Bulls and the Cougars, I believe, is the next game. And then they will be, because we switched those 2 games out. And I'm going to take the Cougars. I like the Bulls. I know they're undefeated, but regardless of the record, I think the Cougars are a great team, and I think that they're going to win this one, and they're going to bounce back after last week's loss to the Celtic Tigers. And then we have the Lancers at the Gunners. I'm going to take the Gunners. They're bound to have a big game at some point. I know they've been a little wishy-washy this year, and I know the Lancers have a good team, but the Gunners are at home, and they have Jabri. At some point, that's going to matter, and it might just be this week. And then we have the Sunday games. We have the Riverhogs at the Black Knights. The Black Knights is who I'm going to go with. I like the Riverhogs. They've been great this year. Dre Shivers has been running like a madman. I think he's actually leading the AFC in rushing right now. Or maybe it was last week. He's been having a good year, but the Black Knights they have like a swagger to them this year, and they are just nobody expected them to, but they're just a really good team this year. So I got to take them until they start faltering a little bit. The Diablos and the Desperados game. I'm going to go Desperados. Like I said earlier when we were talking about their game against the Marshalls, I just think they had a bad week. I don't think that Mason is a bad fit or that Hall isn't still a game breaker. They just had a rough week, and I think they'll bounce back at home. Snowhawks and Elks. Elks will get the bounce-back win. The Snowhawks are just a mess right now. They have a lot of problems, and we saw what happened the last time these 2 teams played. And this time they're in the Elks' home stadium, so that might even be worse. And then I think it's just the last game, Aviators at Huskies. As wishy-washy as the Huskies have been this year, I think the Aviators are the same way, but the Huskies have way more playmakers, so I think the Huskies are going to win it in the end. And definitely going to bounce back and win this week against the Aviators. So those are my picks.
Okay, good predictions and picks right there. I'll follow up with mine here, and I do agree with you. I think the Crusaders are going to get it done there for the Condors. I don't think their defense will be able to hold up at all with the Crusaders' offense, and for that, I think they're going to outscore them and win that one. As for the Armadillos and Dreadnoughts game, even though the Dreadnoughts are undefeated, and they are my squad, after seeing what the Armadillos did there, and then the fact that we still got a young Matt Jones back there, I think their offense is a little bit more developed and ready than ours, and I think that it's going to be a close game, but I do feel that the Armadillos may win that, especially with home field advantage, especially since they lost that first matchup, and it was a pretty close game, which they should have won, honestly, if Devin Wade wasn't throwing so many picks and having an off game, and now that they got Drew Hartsock in, definitely might change the tide this week. We got the Thunderbirds and Barons. Thunderbirds I'm going to go with. I think that, of course, the Barons pretty good team. Their offense, I think, might be able to stick with them a little bit. But, of course, they're playing one of the league's best defenses. So I think that their points are going to be shut down. And then the Thunderbirds' offense against their defense, I don't think they'll be able to shut them down as much. So the Thunderbirds I got in that one. In the Explorers and Tigers game, I got you guys in that one. I think it'll be a pretty good one, but, of course, at the end of the day, I think that you guys will just rise above that challenge. For the Steamers and Marshalls game, I think this is going to be a really good game, but I got the Steamers winning this one. And the reason why I got the Steamers winning is because they have a really good offense. And since they have a really good offense, as much as we talk about the Marshalls defense, I think that they're going to be able to put up more points than the Marshalls offense against the Steamers defense, because the Steamers defense, honestly, this year isn't that bad. And so I think it'll be a close game, but I think it's a game that the Steamers should be able to win. As for the Bulldogs and Bisons game, I got the Bulldogs winning this one. I think the defense of the Bison's just not there, and the offensive line plagues this team. And it's tough to see that to call that they'll lose their fifth straight RFL game, but I feel that that's what's going to happen, even despite the home field advantage. Then the Bulls and Cougars game. I got the Cougars with the upset here, but I honestly feel it could go either way. The Bulls is definitely no team to joke around with, and but I feel like their offense at times is a little bit inconsistent. And the Cougars, after their performance against the Celtic Tigers, I think they should be able to put up more than enough points to be able to come out and win that game. But at the end of the day, it comes down. That's like a toss-up right there, to be honest. Great game to watch. Then the game to close out the premier games, the Lancers and Gunners game. I got the Lancers in this one, and the reason why I got the Lancers winning this one over the Gunners is because, for one, the Gunners have been kind of out of action right now, and their offense, honestly, I don't feel they got much of anything going. The Lancers got themselves a really good defense. Their offense has been really firing on all cylinders. Of course, the run game at times has been somewhat inconsistent, but it looks like they've found their groove. And the Gunners' defense, to be honest, I don't think is going to be able to hold with them at all. And they really need some help on that defense side of the ball. And so I think the Lancers do win that one on the road. Then for the Riverhawks and Black Knights game, I got the Black Knights in that one. They're, like you said, a hot team that I think will get it done. Then the Diablos and Desperados, same deal of your prediction. I think the Desperados bounce back after they lost their streak. And, the Diablos are a really good, solid team, but they still got some ways to go before they become a fear team in the RFL, but definitely not a team you want to sleep on. I do think that the Elks are going to defeat the Snowhawks again simply because the offense is just not looking good. And of course, it's because of the suspensions. But the same deal with the Elks right now. Their offense not looking that great, but I think they get it done. So I give it to the Elks. And in the closeout, I think the Huskies win this one. Hopefully, they should be able to repeat what they did to the Aviators last time and have a big performance where they beat them 35-10. But we'll have to see how that all turns out. And so that is going to wrap up the predictions for the week 6 coming up. Let's go ahead and get a look at the top 10 power rankings, which we did drop on our social media accounts. Of course, this is a power rankings created by Madden and just ordered by me based off the rankings comparing the conferences. And these are the new top 10 rankings. And so reading them off, at number 1, of course, Celtic Tigers still. At number 2, the Steamers moving up from number 4 to I think they were number 5, moving up from number 5 up to number 2 over the Thunderbirds. And the main reason why is because the Thunderbirds did not have a game, and it was a good win for the Steamers. Wasn't, even though it was against the Monarchs, they still have 5 games won, and the Thunderbirds got 4. So that puts the Thunderbirds at 3, with the Bulls dropping from 3 to 4 because of the Steamers elevating over the Thunderbirds. And of course, after a great win over the Condors, your team, Bill, the Explorers, going at 5, followed by the Dreadnoughts at 6. Black Knights at 7, Lancers and Marshals moving up a spot at 8 and 9, and then the Barons squeezing in at top 10, right at number 10, to finish out this top 10 list. So looking at this list, what do you got to say about it? Does it look good so far? Or?
Yeah, actually, it does look pretty solid. I really don't know a whole lot I would change personally. Yeah, I think it's a solid list. I really don't have many gripes about it this week, like I did last week.
Yeah. I honestly feel like this is actually a pretty good list right here. Really good list.
And one thing that guys have to realize, too, is I know there's talks about how people are flip-flopping and going from 4 to 12 and not being on the list at all. We're early in the season yet, man. One win can completely change the standings. One win or one loss can go from first place to third place to second place to fourth place. So until we get to week 10, 11, these lists are going to change quite a bit, quite frequently, based on the current the current schedule and the current records, just because there's not as big of a sample size to go off of. So I don't freak out if your team isn't where you expect them to be, or off the list because we lost a game. It's going to happen like this right now because everybody's got a few wins, and it's just a big cluster until we sort of get some separation later.
Yeah, so nothing really too much to say about that list. I agree with you there. I mean, even you can win a game and still get kicked out of the top 10 list, which we've seen already. But good explanation and breakdown right there, Bill. And so moving on to our next big topic, we go team specific with the Toronto Huskies, man. Just talking about this team, you could see this year has been tough for these guys. They've only lost two. They got a 2-2 record, which is kind of unexpected for me because, I mean, this is a team that won a relocation bowl just last season, or a big time, the second most winningest team in the RFL. And I mean, maybe we may be shooting this out of proportion a little bit early, but it seems like they're having a little bit of trouble on being able to come out with games that they should win. Of course, the Bulls not a slouch team, but they took their first loss to them 14-10. Honestly, felt like they should have put up more points even if they did lose that game, but it still was a shocker to me that they only put up 10 points. Then, of course, Armadillos giving them their second loss of the season with a 40-23 ball game. And so I got to ask you, are the Huskies a playoff caliber team this year, Bill?
Yeah, that's something that I've thought about a little bit. And, I think a lot of this has to do with their offensive line. That they have just not been able to protect Brady Hudson as much as they have in the past, or maybe it's the same, and it's maybe the scheme changed a little bit. Maybe the play calling is a little bit more extended to where the pocket awareness needs to heighten, and it's not happening. I'm not sure, but with them being the defending Relo Bowl champs, you come out and go 2-2 and are sloppy in some games, and you're going to get questioned. So this is completely. I don't think it's jumping the gun or anything. This is real. They're supposed to be coming in and whooping teams and showing that why they won last year. As for what that's going to happen in the future, I think they're still a playoff team. I don't believe at all that they're going to be a high seed. I think if they get to the playoffs at this point, it's going to have to be through a wild card. I could be wrong. They could completely change next week. But if they continue playing the way they're playing right now, with this inconsistency and not being able to block for Brady Hudson, then I don't think they're going to win the division, and I definitely don't think they're going to get a bye week. So, I mean, playoff team, yes, but major contender and team to look out for at this point, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I do feel like they are a team that can potentially make the playoffs, but I also would not be surprised if they don't, because, I mean, like I said, it all comes down to if they continue to play the way that they are. But it's almost like there's nothing really too much they could do except for two things. Maybe pass the football more than what they've been doing so far, which has been their bread and butter for years. But it seems like they're really trying to balance out their offense, and it's just making their offense come out slow and score less points, and that's probably why they lost those two games to the Bulls and Armadillos. But that's been a problem. Another thing is just like you said, the offensive line. It's been terrible. They had their best performance, though, against the Armadillos, so hopefully they keep that performance up, but they still lose the game due to the slow start in the play calling to try to balance out the offense, trying to get the run game more involved, when I honestly feel that these guys should just go all the way out with throwing it to their playmakers, have them make plays, and if you want to get some rush yards, throw some screens. We know those usually don't work, but those receivers honestly can turn those into good gains too, which we've seen them do from time to time on these plays. So, I mean, I think these guys should really start passing the football a lot more. We know they got a pretty good dynamic running back duo with Leonidas and McQuarters, but they have to do what's got them the success that they have to be the second most winningest team in the RFL, and that is just throw the football. Give Keith Guyton the football. Give it out there to Tyrese Maxwell, Dwight Samuel, even your tight end. The rookie tight end's been killing the game right now, and Hudson Johnson. So, I mean, those are guys that should be getting the ball more than what they are. Hudson Johnson's still getting fed, I have to say, but they've got to start spreading the football around to their playmakers, and I think that's been the issue for them so far this year.
Yeah, and I think that I do think that they'll be able to turn it around. I believe that Coach Chiz is a very capable coach, and he proved it last year by winning the Relo Bowl. So I believe he can get it turned around, but the question at this point is, does it happen in time? Does it happen soon enough, or does it happen too late and it sort of squanders the season? So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, very interesting. Can't wait to see how that all turns out. But moving on to the final topic of the RFL, and it's just basically an opinionated question, which I'm pretty sure guys have been asking when we dropped the graphic. Which one of these four teams do you think will remain undefeated for the longest? Will it be the Thunderbirds, Celtic Tigers, Steamers, or Bulls? Bill, what's your thoughts?
I gotta go Celtic Tigers. Dre is an assassin, mercenary, hitman, whatever you want to call him. He is it this year. And like I said before, Worsley has been just phenomenal, especially this last game. It was just crazy watching him move the way he did. So I truly believe that if one team has the best chance, it's going to be the Celtic Tigers, just because of how high-powered their offense is and how it just seems impossible to stop Dre Crowell. Like Rob said, he sent pressure. The guy, you can hit him basically, and he's just going to put it on a line right to the guy he's trying to get it to. How do you stop that? how do you slow that down? If you can't pressure him, you can't sack him because he gets rid of the ball quick enough. It's just I don't see them losing. If I have to choose a second, I'm going to go Thunderbirds then in the NFC, because they I don't think that their schedule is too tough to where they couldn't just win it out. But you never know. That's why I have to go Celtic Tigers over them, even though it's usually the Thunderbirds who just end up, winning most of the games. I do think the Celtic Tigers have a better chance this year.
I can see Rob right now in the chat saying, "Play zone and pray." That's all you're going to be able to do against those guys. And that's the truth, man. And so I agree. I agree with that statement, and I do agree with you on the Celtic Tigers, I think, being the last remaining team, if anything, to be undefeated. I think both the Thunderbirds and the Celtic Tigers have the chance of being the first team in RFL history to win all their games in a single season. We've seen two teams get close, and that was, of course, the Season 2 Red Dragons, who went 15-1, and then following that, a 15-1 season was from the Houston Gunners. And so those are the two teams that came close but didn't win them all. And this might be the first year that we do see a team or two possibly go into the playoffs 16-0. And so those are my two thoughts right there. If Celtic Tigers aren't left remaining, I think both of those teams might go undefeated and go into the playoffs. So those are my thoughts. I've seen people in the chat also. Before you guys ask your questions too, go ahead and answer that question. Who do you guys think is going to be undefeated? I'm interested to see what the community thinks. Do you think one of these teams, which one of these teams do you think is going to be the last team this season to stay undefeated the longest? And I see we got B-Euro says Bulls. Coach Baker got Celtic Tigers. Mick saying Steamers.
Ooh, there we go. I didn't see that one coming through.
Yeah, of course, Nashawn's going to say Steamers. Got Celtic Tigers from Spams. And then Joseph Torres saying Bisons. I don't think they've won a single RFL game yet this season, have they?
Sometimes if you try to imagine it happening, it does not mean that it's going to come true. So,
yeah. Hopefully they turn things around there. There's been quite a few teams that haven't won an RFL game yet. I think 4 or 5 total. But yeah. So those are the comments we got from most of the guys that's been active right now in the chat. And so with that being said, as always, that's the end of the podcast in terms of the topics we'll cover. We are now open questions to answer from you guys in the community who are watching. Make sure you leave your questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer them, of course, here live as best as possible. I wish there was a way I could turn off this hydroplane PlayStation, man. I know that's coming through.
I can barely hear it. It's better than dogs or a bird, so I mean, at least you got that going for you. Okay, so we got, is there a franchise for the RFL? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that question.
I think he means if it's a online franchise. If that's what you mean, then yes, this is an online league, which coaches are invited to, which, where this league is being played on.
And then, actually, I forgot to do this during my little talk about my game. So I want to give a quick shout out to my rookie defensive lineman, because I see somebody's asking who's the best rookie defensive lineman. My defensive end, Jason Henderson, right now, it's like an 8-way tie, but he is tied for the league leading in sack, both AFC and NFC. So shout out to him.
Nice.
And
What do you got, 7?
for the answer to that question, Jason Henderson. That's my answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. To be honest, it's between Jason Henderson and Tyrone Johnson for the Elks.
Was Johnson a linebacker though?
Oh, you said D lineman. Okay, I thought you were talking about defense. Okay,
I'd have to put Nashawn up there.
Yeah, Nashawn too.
Nah, son. Who will win the NFC South in that 3-team race? I don't know, Smitty. Who do you think?
Could be the Marshals, man. I think the Marshals could roll up, but to be honest, Mike, I don't know. That's tough. That's tough. Who's leading it right now? I think that's the Lancers, right? I think the Lancers are leading it, and then it's the Marshals, and then the Desperados. But I honestly think that it's tough. We're going to have to wait on that one. I can't give a definitive answer right now.
I'm going to this now just because now I'm curious. As soon as the computer loads stuff. But I think it is.
My computer just finished loading up, and yeah, I was right. Those guys are in the division with us. I don't think the Diablos, of course, going to be able to move up there. But yeah, honestly, that's a question that we're going to have to wait to see what happens to see how that turns out. Because I think it's going to be between either one of those 3 teams. But more so, I'd say the Desperados and the Marshals.
Yeah, somewhere between the 2 teams. And I know that Noah's probably watching. Nobody ever picked the Lancers. Man, sorry, man, but the Marshals and Desperados, I think they have one thing that you don't yet, and that is I think they have I know the Marshals have a solid defense, but I think they just have a more well-rounded team. Your offense is really good yet, but I don't know if they really get past both of those teams to win the division.
Well, the Lancers did beat the Marshals this season, so I mean, that's not the Lancers are pretty good.
They're not a bad team. They're not bad at all. I think at the end of it all, I think it's going to be one of those 2 teams that make it out on top.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's your RFL Rookie of the Year? Oh man, that's tough.
That's a tough one too. Because at first I thought it was going to be a clear giveaway with Anthony Savoy, who hasn't been playing too bad, but
yeah,
there's been some guys making noise.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't even know because who on the offensive side of the ball really has been a huge it factor as a rookie this year? There really isn't that many.
Yeah, from off the top of my head, I can't think of much of it. Maybe Trey Cook, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I guess it could be either side of the ball, but I was just assuming since we have another one about defensive rookie, either we'd ask about the offense. But defensive rookie of the year, if we're going just off of defense, that's probably at this point a 3-way tie. I'd say Jason Henderson, Tyrone Johnson, and maybe Nashawn Richardson. I think those would probably be the top 3 like to come to my mind right away.
Yeah. I see a question right here. Do you think Jabri Jackson's going to play better? I think he always plays good, to be honest. He always plays good, and honestly, he is that entire offense and has been for years. And, it's just not enough to get it done, though. That's the issue right now, at least for this season. He's been able to literally carry his team to playoff runs by himself, but this season it's a whole different ball game, and he's not getting no help, and he needs it. And that's what the issue is. He definitely isn't getting any help on the defensive side of the ball. So, yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. Who's your early MVP? Man, that's a good one too.
Could be Ben Wakefield or Elijah Bentley right now, man. These guys are balling. Drake Crowell, Trey Worsley.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like just a automatic that you don't even consider him in the running because you're like, oh, well, of course he's up there.
Yeah.
I saw another simulated football game on YouTube. It was straight up garbage. It reminded me of the original XFL. Ouch. RFL is the best in my mind. Keep doing what you do. Thank you. Appreciate that, Miller Kingdom.
Yeah, appreciate that, my guy. Always glad to have you amongst the community watching the games. He's been coming through a lot of the streams, man. Big shout out to you.
Yeah. I'm not sure who you are, if you're on our Discord or not. I feel like I've seen that name quite a bit, but yeah, keep coming around, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, he's been around for a little while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Why can I only have 2 teams in London only? I've been seeing you all chat asking questions about your franchise, and half of the questions I really can't understand, man. I'm sorry. We only have 2 teams in London and 1 franchise. You are limited to the amount of teams you can have in a file. That's about as much as I can tell you at this point from what I've seen for your questions.
Yeah, and if you're looking at the RFL, seeing how we got 3 and you can only get 2 in a file, you got to understand our franchise is not in 1 file.
Yeah.
Okay, so we and a lot of people keep asking this question, but we do not relocate all 32 teams in 1 file. Yes, we do have modding and stuff involved on why we have some cross-play, like for the relocation bowl and everything, but of course, a lot of, like just about not a lot of guys at all are going to be able to do that, which is why our league is so unique. But yeah, for the most part, bro, this is split up into 2 franchises. We are not able to relocate all 32 teams. So, I know people's going to continue to ask that question, but that hopefully that'll let you know what's been going on. Should Joseph Torres start? I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, man. I don't think so. I mean, you could, it depends. I think that what's the name, Devin Holbert. He needs to keep playing because he's not doing bad, man. Now, even though he had that 1 interception that cost him there, and there was a couple of games where he has thrown some interceptions. To be honest, that's the line's fault for the most part. Other than that last one, like I said from last game, where he threw it pretty much straight to the guy. But he's balling honestly at the quarterback position. It's just that he can't win right now, man. And every game that they've been in since he's been there has been close. Even when you were starting Torres, I mean, it was close. But, I think, if you guys had better offensive line when you guys were in, you guys would have won more games than you have.
Yeah, I think one thing, too, that it really doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to this Holbert and Torres thing is while Torres is obviously the future at this point, Holbert is the mainstay, but just looking at them, there is an 8 overall difference between these 2 players, okay?
Exactly.
Torres, I know you want to start, but Holbert is 8 overall better than you, and his awareness is almost 20 more than yours. That is a huge difference in a game situation. So, in all reality, if you take some of the mistakes that Holbert has made with 93 awareness, I mean, I'm not saying that you would play bad, but with that awareness difference, there might be a lot more issues in the offense at this point until you develop a little bit more. And I hope you don't take this as, like, defensively or something, because I'm not trying to be that. I'm just trying to be real. Like, there's a big difference between you 2 still. If he's struggling, chances are you probably would too. It's just the offensive line isn't there. There's some other pieces that you guys need, and you'll get your shot, but it's probably not going to be this season, unless there's an injury or something.
Yeah. And we saw that in the game because, to be honest, you had your mistakes as well in the first game that you started, week 1. And honestly, if it weren't for those mistakes, you guys could have won. And that's the same scenario for what's been going on with Holbert. And like we've said, the attributes, the stats are there for him. And even he's struggling to perform, to finish things because the offensive line just is not providing him the time. So if you were there, yes, you had a good first game. I honestly think it would be more worse outcomes.
Yeah. The next message is again from Am now about his franchise. Why can't I have 2 teams in any city except London? That's not. We have no idea what the answer to that question is. That's just what Madden said it as. It depends on the market, I guess. I don't know. If you have a RFL related question, that'd be awesome. MVP predictions. I see a couple people asking about that again. Like we said before, Drake Crowell, Ben Wakefield, Elijah Bentley are probably the front runners right now. I mean, I would say Drake Crowell if I had to choose one right this second, just because of his legacy and the kind of things he's been able to do this year. But Wakefield's really not that far behind him. He's had a heck of a year.
Yeah. Do you think the Barons making the playoffs in their stacked division? I don't know, man. That's tough. To be honest, I think literally, possibly, the 2 wild cards could be out of that division, man. I honestly think that there could be 3 teams from that division that makes the playoffs this year. And that's, of course, Thunderbirds, Explorers, and Barons. So I honestly think they have a shot.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to say, if I'm already in, then I'm sure they can come in too. I don't care.
Yeah. And then we see, what do you think of the flavor of the moment? What do you think the flavor of the moment will be for upcoming college series? What position will be vital? Well, to be honest, to ask for that, it's not really too much I can say about that. That's just something that you have to wait until, the college series comes around. But, we already know what two positions are stacked that, most guys, even though we gave them a warning, is still going to be playing at and not have an opportunity to play much at all in the RFL is the quarterback and the running back position. So I don't even really pay too much attention to those positions. They are going to definitely make some noises in the college series, but, it's going to be hard for those guys to start in the future in the RFL. An area that I have to say, there's definitely some areas in the RFL that's very important that, if guys applied for would be starters, but, those are usually the positions that aren't flashy that people don't want to be. Like, for example, offensive line. Offensive linemen, pretty much, you're not guaranteed to start, but you will start pretty much soon because our league offensive linemen aren't all too great, and the ones that are old. So, that's a good spot that is weak in the RFL. That draft players can make an impact in. Another one is you can't have too many receivers. We've seen some rookies come out and make some plays. So receivers is pretty decent, but that is also a position that's starting to get thin as well. So maybe not too many, but that's still a needed position. Cornerback for sure.
Yeah.
What's another position I would have to say? I would have to say defense in general, like on the D line and the linebackers. The whole defense, honestly.
Yeah, defense
the entire
has just
defense
been really neglected.
Is an area where you can really make an impact in the RFL, and not saying immediately like you're going to start in your first year, but most guys who make defensive players are in rotation to be playing on the field. The offensive side of the ball, like I said, quarterback, running back, pretty much receiver right now. There's a little bit of spots open, but those three areas pretty much not going to be, guys starting for quite some time. Tight end's a good, decent spot, but that's starting to get filled up as well. And yeah, so it's the defense and offensive line. Those are key positions for the draft. Do you think the Bulls will break their playoff slump? Honestly, I don't know, man. We're going to have to see because, they had a fantastic season last year, and They lost in the first round to the Cougars. I was shocked by that. The Cougars, I think, destroyed them too, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was not a good day to be a Bull.
Yeah. So, I don't know if they'll get out of that slump because they've looked this good last year. They made the playoffs, but are they going to win a game in the playoffs? I don't know. Yeah, I can't call that one. It's definitely going to be some good teams in the playoffs this year, though. I can tell you that.
Yeah. What do you think? Who do you think is the most slept on offensive player in the RFL right now?
That's a good one. Rob Slater. I think Rob Slater is one of the most slept on offensive players in the RFL. He's a beast at quarterback, to be honest. And I know they lost to the Celtic Tigers, but to be honest, he's been a very consistent playmaker. Another one also that I think shorthanded is, of course, the poster boy you can see right here, Carlos Berry. He's a beast, man. He's a monster for the Armadillos. And he only has 83 speed, but his division is so great and his strength is so great that he just turns any run into a big one. And he's just amazing to watch. There's quite a few underrated players. Ben Wakefield's starting to get a name now. Seems like a lot of people starting to understand. But before he was underrated, it's quite a few, man. But those are like the big ones right now off the top. Oh, Langford Cloud. Langford Cloud right now this year probably has to be the most underrated player playing right now for the Black Knights. The Black Knights running back, he's balling.
Yeah, he doesn't get talked about much.
Yeah.
What do you think about Diego Lizarraga Jr.?
I haven't really seen. I think he's been playing decent.
Yeah.
A lot of rookies have, but I haven't. Not saying he's not good or anything, but he hasn't really stood out yet. He hasn't made all the big plays yet that I've been seeing other rookie defensive linemen make, but he's still making plays. So, I think he's good. He's going to get better over his course of his career in the RFL with the Steamers. So that's my take on him.
Have you seen anyone in Madden get a -20 morale loss? Yes, your receiver.
And that comes from simply you gotta, and this is a little lesson 101 for coaches, man. This is a different Madden now. You gotta satisfy your guys. When you're hoarding guys on the team that are good players and you're not giving them playing time, that's gonna hurt you. Or you're not getting them the ball. You got to figure out how to get that player the ball. Like that's literally bottom line what it comes down to. And you can't get mad at the player and then try to trade them away, which is why I've been having a lot of issues with coaches nowadays trying to trade away guys instead of learning how to get the most out of that player. And, that's why he ended up getting that. DeAndre Ken, he had himself a pretty good game, 2 weeks ago or something, but he must not have did something because he's frustrated, lost to 20 morale points. I mean, that's ridiculous. So it's going to be tough for him to get back into a groove. I don't think he likes where he's playing. So that's probably why that happened.
We got, what is it? How extreme is the Cougars' schedule, and are they really looking at 8-8 on the year? I don't think so.
I think they could very well be. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but it's nothing, of course, Rob, to take away from you and your team. But that is you guys probably got the most toughest second half of the schedule in the RFL.
Well,
but
I'm actually looking at the schedule. I'm just pulling it up right now. So, I mean, you got the Bulls this week. I think you're at home. I think you can win that one. Then you have the Aviators and Conquistadors back-to-back on the road, which being on the road sucks, but I think both of those games are easily winnable. And then you go into 4 straight NFL games. 4 straight. Those are all going to be wins, of course, and be boost to your team for the repeated wins. And then you play the Pioneers and the Aviators back-to-back, which you should win those 2 games. And I really think it just comes down to the last 3 games, but I think it's possible that you go 2-1 out of those 3 between the Huskies twice and the Bulls. I don't think it'd be 8-8. I think it'd be better than that, like 10-6, 11-5. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, and I always talk with Rob about this, and he understands it because me and him talk all the time, is, if they do go an 8-8, I wouldn't look at it as a failed season. You just had a tough schedule. There are definitely some games that you should be able to win, but, Bulls right now undefeated. I did pick you guys to win, but you could very well lose that game. And, of course, you got the Huskies who you haven't played yet. You got to play them twice. Who was the other guy that's in the division that they got to play again? It was the Huskies. They play the Aviators. I think they should sweep them.
Yeah.
The Pioneers. So that's like 3 dubs right there extra that you should be able to get you 2-2. So that puts you at, 5-2. Then you get the 4 automatic wins, so that's 9-2. So honestly, yeah, you should at the very least go 9-7, or get at least 9 wins, or 11 or 12. So I say 9-12.
And then on top of it, I mean, I know the Huskies are a tough team, but if they don't get their stuff figured out, I think that you very easily could really wreak some havoc in their backfield on Hudson. And, I mean, if they get it figured out, of course, it's going to be a tough game. It's always a tough game against the Huskies, but they've been inconsistent. If it continues to go that way, that's just going to make the games easier for you. Which team do you think will have the most disappointing season? That's a good one.
Can't really call nothing right now on that. To be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because really there hasn't been any teams that have just been that ridiculously underperforming based on who they've played and what we expected of them considering their players, Can I make a person in the RFL? I think so. I think a few people answered that for you in the chat earlier when I saw you ask. Just go to our website, relocationfootballleague.com, go to become a player, read the paragraph, click the application at the bottom, fill the application out, pay the $5, and you can have a player in the college series in this upcoming this September or August.
Yeah. I see Miller Kingdom asking, is the Bulls the RFL version of the Cincinnati Bengals? I guess if that's what you want to look at them as, man, don't really have too much of a comment on that. It's either they win or lose a playoff game. hopefully they'll turn things around this year if they do.
And Roland's upset we skipped over Cheeseburger for best rookie DL twice.
He's doing all right.
Yeah, he's doing all right. But when you have guys that are leading the league in the sack category as defensive lineman, and he's not, it's obviously not going to get talked about yet. I mean, that's just reality. I know you like him more because you're a Baron and the Baron's coach, and he's a Baron, but that just doesn't mean you just catapult him to the top of the list.
Yeah, I think he's up. He's definitely in the contention, probably like top 5 rookies right now. But on the defensive side of the ball, but yeah, I haven't seen him get nearly as much sacks and stuff as those other guys like Tyrone Johnson and Jason Henderson and other players. So yeah, he still could change things around. You never know, man.
Yeah. If I
and what it says,
who's the biggest bust? Who's the biggest bust created player in RFL history?
That's a tough.
You know what? I'm going to go and answer this one, even though it was before my time, and say that receiver dude I had that just sucked. Who was that?
Matthew Milo.
Yeah. What the heck? He was like, wasn't he like a first-round pick or something?
First-round pick.
Jeez.
Was in his 60s when he was drafted overall and then didn't do anything. He had a couple of catches that was pretty good, but then the guy who created him ended up being a terrible personality type of guy. But, that's probably got to be the biggest bust in the RFL right now.
Can the punter or the kicker positions can the punter or the kicker positions start? Miller Kingdom, I lost. Do you know what he's trying to ask?
Can the punter or the kicker position starting positions for a drafted player? I don't know.
Are you asking if they can be in the draft? Then yes,
they can be drafted. Yeah, they've got like 2 submitted kickers that got drafted this past year. The past 2 years, he had Tyrus Wiley for the Celtic Tigers, and then we got Tyrone Davis for the Cougars. I think it was more too. And I seen B Euro's question on top. He asked for RFL Bowl prediction. Honestly, right now, can't even think. But I really, honestly, if I had to throw something out there, my 2 opinions on who I think it would be. I think it's, of course, for the AFC, I'm going to say Celtic Tigers, and for the NFC, I think it could be between the Explorers and Thunderbirds.
Wow. I think it's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
But you gotta get right on them Thunderbirds, man.
Roland, first for tackles for loss of DL. Yes, the first for tackles for loss. Sacks are also tackles for loss. So that just accept it, man. He's gonna need more sacks yet. All right, let's move on.
He's just gonna need to make more plays. This was gonna come down to.
We're not conspiring against you, man. Just calm down.
Yeah.
As the Lancers coach with leading for most sacks, most people at the best of them in the NFC. As Lancers coach with leading for most sacks and most interceptions, can we compete with the best of them in the NFC? I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Repeat the question. As Lancers coach with leading most sacks, most interceptions, can we compete with the best? I think you can compete. Yeah, honestly, feel you can compete with some good teams. If you played the Thunderbirds, I think you put up a good fight. Because you got a really good offense taking up against a really good defense, and honestly, your defense isn't bad either. But I think of course, to take that team to the next level there with the Lancers, you got to find a way to have your team be more consistent offensively. And that's what I think it comes down to. That run game, and you figure out what you're going to do with that. I mean, we've seen it be consistent from time to time, but, once you figure that whole ordeal out, and also some of these moves you're making, man, you could be giving away pieces that are helping you be successful. And good thing we got this committee in check here, because this guy, I know I said it the last time, but he tried to go after another 90-plus overall running back, man.
And I still can't believe receiver doesn't want to play.
Yeah. So, it's just, you got to figure out what you're going to do with that team, with the roster that you have there, man. And definitely is a team that should be a playoff caliber team. Hasn't made it to the playoffs ever, but they should be able to be there this year. You got to figure out how to make that team operate consistently and make the best moves for that team.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. I don't think that your secondary. I mean, yeah, you could lead the league in interceptions right now, but when it comes down to it against the best teams, I just don't think your secondary is there right now.
And then coming down to the move parts, like just to put it out there, for one, when you made the trade with the Thunderbirds, at the end of the day, like, if it's a trade, of course, not involving legacy players and things that is all in the RFL. We give you guys some leeway to be able to make those trades as long as it's nothing touching those type of players. But, it comes down to understanding your team before you get here. And I honestly feel like for your team, or the Lancers, you gave away a key part to your team that could have really helped out your defense against the pass game. And you didn't even know that Session, the safety that you traded to the Thunderbirds, was actually a corner before he was a safety. He was moved to that position. And you were looking for a cornerback, and all you had to do was switch him back to cornerback, and you would have been straight. Yeah. And instead you didn't look at that and you traded him away. Now you have trouble at the defensive back position. Like it's like certain moves that's holding you guys back. But like I said, you're still a pretty good team, but you guys could be a lot better if you just work with the guys you have and figure out how to get things going. That's the biggest thing, and that's me being real right now on the chat, because like I said, like I've said today in the coaches chat and everything, I'm coming straight at guys, letting them know, what they need to do, what they haven't been able to do right with their teams right now, and teams having success, but you gotta be able to get it all together.
Look at this guy's comment.
He didn't suck, man.
Session just sucks. No, man. Like, if we're being honest,
he's killing it right now for the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, the day that trade came through, I'm like, man, I hope this thing doesn't go through. I'm gonna trade for him and I'm gonna turn him into a corner. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's just like I understand you're a younger dude coming in, and I know that at the end of the day, you gotta. That's why I encourage coaches before they come here. You gotta look at your team before you get there, because you're saying he sucked, but he was at the safety position. You never moved him to corner to see how he played. That's his original position. If he was there, he'll be doing better than any cornerback that you have right now on your roster. And that's just, me being real. And that's also, I hope this is an example of letting guys know, like, instead of trying to be all trade friendly and just trying to make a trade for the sake of the trade, try to work with the guys that you have and get the best out of them. That's the biggest issue that I have with some coaches here, but that's me giving the real here. And, hopefully you guys learn from that type of stuff, because that, like I said, your team's, it's not like your team's not having success right now, but it could have been even better if those moves weren't made.
Yeah, I mean, you basically are already like the Oklahoma City Barons, and you helped create the Brooklyn Lancers. So, I mean, you guys just need to like focus on your team a little bit, and you guys will be straight.
And I'll be talking about this in the coaches meeting that we're supposed to have on Friday. But another biggest thing for the coaches is this is a league. Yeah, you got friends that are coaches and everything like that, but stop trying to be friends and help out your friend in this league. That is not going to help you in this league. For one, it's going to get you kicked out of here faster because you're not making the right logical moves for your team. Another thing is, just like I said, when it comes down to that, you got to prepare for your team, like what's best for your team. And I was talking with Nick and how he's trying to get rid of Ronnie Nickens. Like, I don't no other coach. If you don't need Ronnie Nickens, don't go after Ronnie Nickens, because you don't need him. Now, maybe there's a team like the Gunners or maybe somebody else who needs him, but don't try to pull the weight off of somebody else who's struggling just to help them out when it's going to do nothing but hurt your team. Why do that? You got to understand that you got to make the best decision for your team. That's what it comes down to. And I feel like there's quite a few coaches right now who aren't doing that, and that's just me putting it out there.
Now you guys did it, all right? Now Smitty's just letting you guys all have it.
Now I'm just putting, because at least they know what's going to be coming on Friday, because that's a big topic that I'm going to be talking about, man. A lot of guys got to change up what they're doing, man, because we'll talk about that. I ain't trying to get all heated up and everything in here, but
who wants a reality check? Come on, say something else.
Boy, Roland said, I only acquired 62 Lancers.
Now, I feel like, even though I know you're over exaggerating, I feel like you're underselling that statement right there.
Yeah. But is that all the questions?
I think so.
I think that is, man. Well, we definitely went a little bit over the time we usually go. We're almost at an hour and 50 minutes right now. So with that being said, man, appreciate you guys as always coming through, tuning in, supporting the RFL, and listening to the podcast and giving you guys asking your questions and giving your opinions and things like that. But that's going to do it here for us tonight. It's your boy Smitty, RFL commissioner and play-by-play commentator. Along with did we get this guy a name yet?
No, we got a whole bunch of them in the chat right now.
They got in the chat right now? Let me see.
Yeah. Well, there's a few of them.
Bill the Bruiser. How about that, man? You like that?
How about Bill the Bully? Because everybody wants to call me a bully.
Bill the Bully.
I'm the bully. Bully Bill. Bully Bill.
We'll see. We probably got to work on that a little bit. I'm not feeling that like that. I don't know. I mean, if you like it, man, you know what I mean? But, I'm not about to sit up here and be like, yeah, we got Bill the Bully with us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we'll work on that, guys. Yeah, I'll read over this and look at the names, and he will too. We'll figure something out. But until then, we're out. Peace.